Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to talk about Kentucky's matchup in Knoxville with the Red Hot Volunteers on Saturday. Blake, it feels like we're in some kind of a bizarre alternate universe, but because this game not expected to be close. Just the math, okay? We'll talk about the subjective judgments in a moment, but Ken Pomeroy has got Tennessee winning by 13. Bart Torvik has Tennessee as an 18.3-point favorite. BPI has the Vols up 14.1, and Jeff Sagarin at 12.8. That's an average of 14.6 points. We don't have the lines here as we do this on Thursday morning, but if you are going to go by the computers, again, that's suggesting Tennessee is about a 14.5-point favorite. And between Ken Pomeroy, Bart Torvik, and BPI has been the high man on Kentucky all year. The Vols are given a 92% chance to win this one. We are living in some crazy times.
Just of course, it's reality for Kentucky at this point because, as we mentioned, I don't know what that number is if they don't lose to South Carolina. I still think it's a high number, just given what we've seen from them away from home. And I think you add in the data now of a home loss to South Carolina, and that makes this game look even more one-sided from that standpoint. So, yeah, I think for me, it's there's no reason for us to go over everything we talked about with Kentucky. If you subscribe to this channel, you watched other videos, you know exactly what we think about where Kentucky is right now. And there's really no reason to just keep repeating it because it's a lot of the same stuff we've honestly talked about for over a month now. Now the issue becomes, I think this is a mentally, like how do they bounce back? And I think that will be the big test for me because just like we said with Alabama, and I pointed this out late in the game really throughout, Alabama's in control of that down the stretch. Alabama's realizing an opportunity, right? We're going to keep our foot on the gas here. And I think that's, for Tennessee, what does Tennessee want to do? They want to do the same thing Alabama did. They just want to blow this team out. They don't care that Kentucky's, down in the dumps, and they don't care about that. They want to come out and just blow Kentucky out, right? And I think mentally, once again, it's the same stuff I've talked about is, will we see Kentucky change anything in their mental sort of approach to this game? Meaning, do you see anything that sort of just, okay, well, now maybe there's that aggression, there's that, whatever you want to call it. That's it. Like, because that to me, once, just like I said with the Alabama game, right? That determines the game. Because statistically, we can run through everything, and if you watched either of these two teams play, you know exactly what to expect here. Tennessee's the best defensive team in the country, playing a team that is not great offensively and, is starting to slip a bit defensively. I mean, Kentucky's defensive numbers will actually shock you at times if you look at it just on the road away from home. So, yeah, I mean, we can talk about some of the stuff, but at the end of the day, I think this is a game where it's easy to ask a couple questions. Can this game get out of hand? Absolutely. Can Kentucky can they have, something after that South Carolina game? Is there a team meeting where all of a sudden everybody just is like, we're tired of this, we're tired of being embarrassed, we're done with this? Will that happen with this team? We will find out on Saturday.
Okay, there's a few things I'm looking at that are just astonishing. First of all, Kentucky 92 in adjusted defensive efficiency, and what I see at times is occasionally guys taking their sweet time getting back on defense. My experience is that when a team is so off in its performance, and we picked Kentucky as our preseason favorite in the league for all the reasons we've outlined.
Boy, I should have stayed with Tennessee.
Well, yeah, you probably should have.
I flipped that at the last second. Oh,
Yeah, well, you can blame me for part of that too. I think I talked you into it.
you did.
I did, to be fair. But when it starts, when it's something, when the performance is so off, it's almost always some sort of a chemistry issue. And there's been speculation out there about what that is. I don't know what's true and what's not, so I'm not going to go into it. You can go to message boards and Twitter and read that for yourself and decide if something's there or not, or what that something is. I think something is definitely there. When you got Oscar Sheboy making comments about, play some walk-ons of the fight, that tells you there's some issues there. And when it becomes something that's the stats in my mind go out the window. And by the way, but speaking of stats, Ken Palmer's now got Kentucky going 8-10 in the league. And that's just kind of staggering to look at. I don't know that he's far off, given that Kentucky's 1-3. But point I'm making is when you've got a chemistry issue, like it appears Kentucky has, I start kind of throwing all the math out the window. And I think the smart bet seems to be that continues until the team shows you demonstrably that it has fixed it.
Yep. I don't, this is one of those where, you can look at it and say, hey, they've got to do that. Like, they've got to be better, right, in this game. Like, they have to. Like, this can't continue, can it? But we kind of said
But
that
it
already.
has.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, we've kind of said that already. And we thought that after the Alabama game. And, so look, if you're a Tennessee fan, you're tuning in, like, why are you just talking about Kentucky? Because to me, that's the game. What else do we say about Tennessee? As we said,
Well,
I mean,
because if
Tennessee.
Kentucky shows up as Kentucky, then we're talking about a game. If Kentucky doesn't, then this is all a foregone conclusion because Tennessee is so freaking good that if Kentucky continues to do what Kentucky's done in recent week, it's going to be a bloodbath and it's going to be over 10 minutes into the game. Tennessee's just that good. I know Tennessee slipped a little bit against Vanderbilt defensively. I think the smart bet is to figure that that's not going to continue based on Tennessee's performance. And Kentucky is not the team that wants Tennessee is the worst possible matchup for Kentucky right now, given the state of where this program is.
Well, I just found a very interesting stat that I did not expect to stumble upon here, but now that I'm looking at it, it is a
Well,
very
I want
interesting stat.
I want
Go
you
ahead.
I want you to hold your thought because we need to get in a word from our sponsor, BROTHROW, betting $11 to win 10 wins. With BROTHROW, you bet 10 to win 10. It lets you bet in all 50 states because it's not the house bettors have a fair chance at winning. It is the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. No deposit money needed, no minimum bets, no need to connect a bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. It's a hassle-free sign-up process that lets you get in seconds. Once you get there, ask to join our private group, Southeastern 14. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. Get in, ask to join our group, and have some fun. All right, let's hear it.
So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on, I gotta make sure I get this right, because I know this is riveting for everyone, but I promise it's gonna be worth it. 1,
Way to
2,
sell it.
3, 4. Is this really? Is this true? 6, 7. Oh my gosh, I did not realize this. Like, and again, I know this is riveting television here, but so the last 4 seasons, these two teams, of course, have met twice in the regular season, each of the last 4. Only one game has been decided by less than double digits, and that was an 8-point
Wow.
game. A lot of these games have been blowouts. I don't know if we realized that off the top of our head, but
I did not.
here, I'll give you the number. Last year, Tennessee at Kentucky. Kentucky wins by 28. Last year in Knoxville, Tennessee wins by 13. In 21, it is Tennessee winning in Lexington by 11. Kentucky wins in Knoxville by 15. 2020, it is Tennessee Kentucky winning in Knoxville 77-64, so by 13. Tennessee wins in Lexington by 8, so there's your 8-point there. 2019, Tennessee loses at Rupp by 17, wins in Knoxville by 19. So some of these games score-wise have not been close. So you're telling me, Chris,
And the weird
that
thing is the road winning there. I did not realize
it's been
that.
kind of
But
bouncing back and forth. Yeah, it's kind of been interesting with these two. So
I just throw that all out at this point. I mean, until
well,
Kentucky, if you are betting that Kentucky shows up and plays well in Knoxville, you are betting that whatever that issue is or issues get fixed between Tuesday and Saturday. And just based on recent history, like I don't hold a crystal ball. I cannot tell you and bet my life on it that that's not going to happen. I can tell you from watching human nature that if you're going to bet on Kentucky, I would be very limited in how much confidence I put. And look, I guess you could put out a number that at some point makes it make sense. Like if the line is 50, which it's not going to be, but for point of illustration, yeah, there's always a number at which it probably makes sense. I'm just not buying it at this point until I see something different from Kentucky. And when is the last time we saw something different from Kentucky? Maybe first week of December.
well, here's the deal, right? As we said, we could go really deep into this, but if you're a Tennessee fan or a Kentucky fan and you're watching this, you've watched your team play this season. You know exactly where they are, and Tennessee is a heavy favorite here. Now, there's two things that could really make Tennessee even more of a favorite, which is astonishing. Casey Wallace back spasms. Jacob
That's right.
Toppin didn't play against South Carolina. You know, so I mean, it's Cal. As of right now, we're recording this on Thursday. We don't know the status of both those guys. We don't know, the exact situation there. So that is something that's important. Um, right. So, and look, I know we didn't talk a lot about that with Toppin not playing against South Carolina, just because playing or not playing, it was still a bigger thing for Kentucky at the time. But he is someone that is shown at times he can give them a big spark. I mean, had good back-to-back games against Louisville and LSU, and so, and then he just came back and couldn't really do a whole lot against Bama. But they need him on the floor. Like he has to be out there, and can CJ Frederick continue to give them something from 3-point line? But again, Wallace has to be out there if they're going to have a chance, and getting Toppin back would be great. And again, if you're watching this at a later date, we're just telling you we don't know this as we're recording. Of course, you'll know before the game if those guys are going to play. But so yeah, I mean that's it. Kentucky needs to be at full strength. Kentucky needs to put their best lineups on the floor. Which, in all honesty, Chris, now that I look back at it, it may have been something we said early in the season. Get the 2 3-point guys out there and hope for the best, because it's better than what they're doing right now. And just try to roll with what you got in that regard. But that requires everybody being on the floor that you need to be on the floor, and certainly requires Oscar Tshiebwe still being involved in a lot of different ways. But yeah, Tennessee's defense, as we've seen so many times this season, they can completely shut you down. And I think we're at that point now where Kentucky has to have a game plan. And I feel like some Kentucky fans, when they heard me say that, were like, well, there goes our chance, because they don't love their game plan. And it's funny because someone's asked me that question the other day, and we brought that up many times, right? About what is Kentucky's game plan? Can you really identify it game in and game out? Someone asked me that. They're like, do you see like what is Kentucky like? What are they actually doing? Like, what's their approach? And they're like, when you scout them, what stands out? I said, well, other than just the skill of the players, I don't know, because I don't know if there is anything you can look at and just feel like, hey, that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
That's how you have to beat Tennessee. And unless there is just a switch that is flipped, that's one of the most fascinating storylines coming. Does their mindset change? Because away from home has told us that when they get in these hostile environments, they do not react well. And it's going to be a hostile environment in Knoxville. Maybe this Kentucky team can keep that trend of finding ways to win there and, getting back on track. Maybe this is the turning point, but there's no way I'd bet on that. So
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Wallace and Toppin things because I meant to do that, and that is a big part. I still think the issue with Kentucky transcends all that, but with Tennessee, there's also been an issue worth bringing up. That's Josiah Jordan James has come back. He's been back 3 games now, and he's not played a ton of minutes, but there was this little thing in the back of my head that's going, Tennessee is playing unbelievably well. It is just obliterated Mississippi State and South Carolina by what? 34 points at home and 43 on the road, respectively. Like, it's hard for anybody to play that well every night. And sure enough, we called maybe a little bit of a pullback against Vanderbilt, which is exactly what happened. Vanderbilt was either that the game was either tied or Vandy was up 2, I think, at halftime. And Rick Barnes lit into his team, and the second half was a little different. But there was some sense that Tennessee had been playing close to its ceiling, and eventually a team has to come down a little bit, which the Vols did. But if I'm Kentucky, that's a little bit more dangerous because Rick Barnes probably got their attention with that half. And again, you've got a major cog here to that team that has not been available for 10 games this season. Plus, you've got Vescovy, seems like he's shooting the ball a little bit better. Olivia Kumwa, hit his first 15 shots in the SEC or something like that. He's been just a force underneath. This is a very balanced team that is also healthier than it was 2-3 weeks ago.
well, the difference between Vanderbilt and Kentucky is Vanderbilt's kept their games close on the road. Kentucky is not.
Yeah.
And that's the difference to me. And I think that's why, again, Tennessee maybe is, have a couple of those. Talk about Barnes kind of lighting into his team. You have one of those games where you're not perfect, but now you get that out of the way, and you set up for a matchup here that on paper just looks to be wildly in your advantage. And like we said, it's just, I think when you look at strength on strength, that's how we try to, match up teams and, analyze how a game's going to play out. Strength on strength. Ooh, Tennessee's defense could really, really make things difficult for Kentucky here. And look, Tennessee's playing better offensively too. So, yeah, I mean, I again, I don't want to. We talked so much about Kentucky over the past several days that I know there are people that are like, well, you guys are saying the same things. Of course we are. What else do we say until they play another game, right? I think we've probably spent a lot more time on this game than we should have, just because the point is, unless we see a change in Kentucky from what we've seen, especially the past game, but really throughout the season in these kind of games, there's no reason for us to have that confidence that this is the turnaround. But if it is, hey, good for them. But there's no reason for me to believe that heading into this one.
Yeah, Tennessee big is the only pick that makes logical sense at this point, unless Kentucky shows up and really gives Tennessee a fight, at which point I think you will start saying, hey, maybe there's a path to Kentucky getting better. But I'm a need to see it to believe it guy, and it just has not been there to be seen of late.
Yep, I will take Tennessee. So, I mean, that's the only choice for me. So,
parting thoughts?
Nope. Be sure to subscribe. Check everything out we got. We'll have predictions for all the other Saturday games in another video. So hit that subscribe button.
He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. We'll see you again with more previews of SEC basketball action for this weekend.